I don't know how you feel about this, but every time when I've cut out such a digital ephemera pack, like this, for example, there's this tiny feeling of panic because I know after half of an hour, my desk looks not like this organized, but it looks, for example, like this, or like this, or like this. And yeah, perhaps you know this, and perhaps you have a problem with this stage of a desk as well. So this is the reason for today's video, because I have, yeah, some kind of an organizing idea for you, and I would like to invite you to this video. I would like to show you how I made this little organizer here out of 2.5 books, some fabric, some book pages, some Mod Podge, and hot glue. That's all. So if you want to know how I made this, then please stay tuned and enjoy this video. Hi there, this is Luisa Heinzel. Welcome to my channel Junk Journal Art. Yeah, today with a really messy desk, and I think you all know this. And I have thought about a solution for this problem, that you don't have an organized desk during your junk journal making process. So I have my digital ephemera cut out here, ready to go into my journal and ready to be embellished and that stuff. And I made this little organizer here so that I can put all of those ephemera pieces into my organizer during my journaling process, so that I can find everything when I need it. In the past, it was like, yeah, a really big mess on my desk. Excuse me, please. I had everything, like the papers that become the pages in the end, like ribbons and lace and buttons and all this decorative stuff. I had everything on my desk, and yeah, all the tags and this ephemera was sometimes lost in between of all the other materials. So I thought I can put everything in this little organizer. I mean, everything that's the ephemera pack. I have printed out the ephemera pack here, as you can see, 2 times. This is one time, this Ocean Eyes ephemera pack. And on this side, you can see it, yeah, a second time, because, you know, I make German videos and English videos. So I have everything in this organizer divided into this both sections. And I can take it out when I need it. But when I don't need it, it can stay in here. And that's a really cool thing, because I can find everything what I need. If I need a tag, for example, then I can take it out and I will find it within seconds. Then I can make my decoration, you know, back it with some coffee dyed paper, or set an eyelet and make some ribbon through this eyelet, or yeah, gluing some collaging things or that stuff. And then I can decide if I want to put it directly into a pocket in my journal pages that are in process on my table, or if it has no place in the journal yet, then I can put it back into this organizing thing and I can take it out later, so that I have everything in this thing. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Until I need it. So for example, there are many people who make their ephemera before they put it, no, they make the ephemera and then put the journal together, and in the end, they put the whole ephemera and the embellishments into the journal. I make it a little bit different, but when you do it like so, then you can also use such an organizing tool. And the good thing about this is that, please imagine you have all your ephemera ready. So, I mean, it's embellished and you have made everything with it that you want. Then you can see here how thick everything will be. I mean, this little book here and this little slot in between, this little box, is also some kind of a measurement, so that you can see how thick your whole embellishments will be in the end. And so you can have a better feeling how thick your journal will be in the end. I think that can be a really helpful thing as well. Okay, so I would like to show you how I made this. for this special organizer, I used 2.5, yes, you heard right, 2.5 of those books. So you can see here, there are 5 of those books. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means I took 2 books and cut them in half and used another half one. So that's the reason why I have 2.5 books. Yeah, you can see that on my desk, that the original book is the double height as this little organizer is. But I wanted it that the ephemera can peek out on the top so that I can see it better. Of course, you can make it in any size that you want. And of course, depending on how much of the same books you have. So I like to take the same books. You can also use different books. But yeah, depending on what you want to use it for later, you can decide how much books you want to use. So this is the half one. And as you can see, it's only such short, and that's because I've cut those books into 2 pieces. But I will show you later how I did that. The first thing that we have to do is we have to remove the pages here. So I will do that in the same way, in exactly the same way like I would do it when I would like to make a junk journal cover out of such a book. So I cut along here this little line and in my last video I've shown you that in really deep detail. So if you have missed that, please check out my Ocean Eyes Junk Journal playlist. It's linked down below in the description box. There you can find that video about the junk journal cover as well. And I made it exactly the same way here. So just cut these pages out with a really, really sharp knife. So please make sure that you don't cut your fingers, but make sure that you have a sharp knife. Otherwise, you will have really big problems to get this out. So here I had a little problem with my finger, but I only hurt my finger on my table, so don't be confused. I'm making the voiceover for this video. So this originally was the German version of that video, and I make the voiceover because, yeah, to be honest, I don't need a second of these organizer things. I already have 2. I made one prototype that you can see in that video, and then I made the second one for the German version of this video, and that's the reason why I'm making this voiceover. So hopefully you can understand everything. But I also want to say that this is not the easiest tutorial. I mean, you have to think about some details really good when you want to have something that lasts long and that you can have for years and still have fun with it. So one thing that you have to have in mind is this spine thing from the inside. Please, when you have removed the pages from the book, look very carefully to the inside of the spine and to the condition of this spine. You can see I'm removing this paper from the spine because it's really loose. Later on, we would like to glue some fabric to this because it will be visible in the end. When you look to the book, then you can see the spine from the inside later in this little organizer thing. And yeah, I want to help you to find out if you have to remove this paper or not. So if it is loose, take it off as good as possible. If it is really sturdy and well glued there, then of course you can leave it there and you can, yeah, just leave it. So another thing is the problem with this rounded spine. Perhaps you can see the last book here on this little organizer, this one, is really flat. And I will tell you later what you have to have in mind that that doesn't happen. I made a little mistake, but there are some things that you have to be really careful so that that don't happens. The next thing is I want to have a really straight cut there where this front piece and the back piece of the book is ending. So I tried to tear this end paper a little bit really carefully until I can see the cardboard that's coming through there. I mean the original book cover. Normally I would place the book like this to my table and then cut with a knife along this line. Because of the rounded spine that I don't want to destroy, I take my scissors and cut it here, like you can see here, like this, because I don't want to press too much to the spine so that it doesn't get flat. That's the thing. You have to look at your book. How is that made? Is it a round spine that it's really flexible? Yeah, and that can be destroyed. Then please make that really, really carefully when you want to have the rounded spine on your organizer later as well. I do the same thing on the other side. If you have a book that was bound with leather, then please be really careful, because this old leather can tear really, really, really easily. And you have to make sure, yeah, that you don't destroy the book in this stage. So the next thing that you will need is some cutting mat or some surface that you can cut on. And now we have to divide this book into two pieces that have exactly the same size. And that's the biggest problem, I think. Of course, we are junk journaler and we don't need to measure anything normally. But in this case, I would suggest to measure everything really exactly so that this organizer gets really regular later, and that it is straight, and that you don't have this Tower of Pisa later. And here is another thing that you have to please to check out really well with your own book. When you lay it flat to your table and you want to cut here, then please make sure about the condition of the spine. So yeah, what am I talking here in the German video? Okay, so here you can see, sorry, I'm a little bit confused. Here you can see that this little dividing part is not really regular. That was because I have cut the other books not exactly in the middle. I made something wrong with the measuring, and then it came that one of the books was a little bit smaller and the other one a little bit higher. So yeah, that you get this little differences in between of those books. You can cover that up with fabric later. It will be not so the problem, but I want to say the more exact you measure this at this point, the more exact, of course, your organizing tool will be. So first of all, I thought I could look at this little grid on my cutting mat, but then I found out that those cheap cutting mats, this is a really cheap one, are not so exact. When you measure this grid, then sometimes you have some differences with your ruler. I don't know if you have ever experienced that, but yeah, I like to measure this with my ruler, even if the easiest way would be to count these little squares on this grid and make it with the help of the squares. But if you want to have it really exact, then please use a ruler. I don't know what's happening with this people who make those cutting mats, but yeah. Okay, so also look at this edge of your book. Sometimes those edges are a little bit rounded. So that means when you want to cut in the middle, really in the middle, you have to put your ruler to the top of your book, of course, and then you have to look at the ruler really from the top. I mean, in a 90-degree angle, so that you don't have problems with 1 millimeter or even a half of a millimeter can be, yeah, some kind of a problem. So I look to my ruler really from the top so that I get a really, really exact measurement because of this little round shitty thing there on the on the edge of this book. Sorry when I say that, but it makes life not really easier when books are rounded at the edges. But of course, the most books are in this rounded way. So yeah, I measure this here. So I have, I think, 16 and some millimeters. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I can't hear my German voice of the video. So yeah, I looked here what measurements there are and divided that into two. So you can do that with every book, of course. You don't have to take such old books. You can also use some newer books or books that you don't need anymore or whatever. It don't has to be such an old leather-bound book. You can use nearly everything that you have. Then I make some marks here on my cover, as you can see, one here in the middle of the length, of course, and one on the other side, also in the middle of this length, so that I have two of these marks, so that I can, yeah, lay my ruler there later and have a really easy job to cut that. Yeah, so what am I doing next? Okay, so then I make a little line here on my cover, so that will be not visible in the end. I'm not so good at measuring, I have to say. To be honest, I hate measuring. That's the reason why I do the most of my projects without measuring. But yeah, if you have to measure, go the safe way, and especially when you don't like measuring, go the safe way and make a line so that you can see where you have to cut. Another reason for this line is this book cover is really dark, and it has a little, yeah, this, the surface is not really flat. It has a little texture on it. So when I make this line, I can see really clearly where I have to cut. And then here I'm laying my ruler right to this line. And then when I cut with this knife, I stand up from my chair so that I can cut when I'm standing. For me, that's really a really big help, because when I'm standing, I can press my ruler really secure to this cover, and I have more pressure with my cutting knife. And when I say pressure, I mean a medium amount of pressure. So you will see that in a second when I cut this, I will press, but I'm going over it several times so that I can make sure that I, yeah, have a really straight cut, that this cut itself is 90 degree as well. So I try to hold my knife really straight, so that I don't cut, yeah, this, you know, Tower of Pisa, so that the cut is really straight and the book can stand really flat on this tiny surface. I don't know how to explain that in English, but yeah, you know what I mean. It will stand on the cutted surface later, and that has to be flat to make it even on the top as well. When I have cut there several times, then I use this little slot that I already have and cut the rest, especially then when it's a really thick book cover. You have an easier job when you use this slot. You can take your left hand, when you cut with your right hand, of course, you can take your left hand and press the book cover down to your table that is really secure and really sturdy, and then you can cut the rest. It's easier than when you would hold your ruler the whole time while you are cutting. And when you cut this spine, please make sure that you do that really carefully so that you don't destroy the spine material, especially when it's really old leather. It can happen that it gets destroyed really easily. So make sure that you cut really carefully. Take your time and yeah, do it step by step and do it really carefully. Okay, so of course you could also, when you don't like cutting or you don't want to have such small organizer, you can also use the whole length of a book. I'm showing you that here with a whole book, even such a giant tag would peek out on the top. And if you want to use it for larger pieces of your ephemera or for embellishments, of course you can also do that and use a whole book. Or like I'm showing here, you can, of course, combine different sizes. Look at this. That looks cute. I think that looks really cute, especially when you use such old books. I mean, yeah, it's such a treasure to have such old books, and these are in a really good condition. At the top and the bottom of the spine, they are, yeah, have these little things that are coming off, but I think it's okay. So, I mean, I want to have it on my table. I don't touch those areas where the spine is a little bit broken, and I think it's okay. But the charm of this organizing thing, I think, comes with the age of the books that you use. If you use newer books, it would look nice as well. But if you use those old books, I think it gets this, yeah, this special touch. So when they are later on attached, then it looks like this. As you can see here, the title of the book is on this brownish surface. And yeah, you can turn it around, then you have it not on the same height, this brownish thing, I mean. And these areas are not the same size. So you can decide, of course, how you want to do that. But I like to have the original edge of the spine on the top of this thing and the cut on the bottom, so that it looks like those things are really, yeah, real tiny books that are standing next to each other. In the end, they will be attached, something like this. But first of all, we have to cut the second book. And you also please have to arrange those during your process a little bit. So here I'm checking if this edge is really the same. So if you have problems that this is not the same, then you have made some mistakes when you have cut it. Or what also can happen is that the book is really old and that the size of even the same books is not the same. I mean, these are all from the same series, as you can see. You would expect that they have all exactly the same height, but it's not the fact. When you see them in your shelf next to each other, it seems they have the same height, but they have not. And yeah, I think it's okay. We are junk journaler and we, yeah, can live with those little differences, but please make sure if you want to have it really regular that you have to measure it really correct. Okay, so here I'm trying to figure out in which order I want to have those books. So I like to do that in the very beginning so that I can concentrate to the next steps. Yeah, so that I have an order of what I want to do. It's easier for me, but of course you can do it like you want it. Now, please don't be confused. I'm taking my phone off to show you where I want to put these books later. So here you can see a little behind the scenes. This is my desk at the moment. And as you can see, I have this shelf there in the background. And here is one of those books as well. And here on the other side also. I use these to hold my shelf. So these are, yeah, the stands of my shelf. But as you can see, you can't take this book out. Inside of this book, there are no pages, but there's a wooden block that holds my shelf and that's attached to my desk and the wall, as the shelf itself also. And I've only glued the book cover around this wood thing that holds the shelf. And the plan is to take this little thing here and put it next to this bookshelf stand so that it looks like this, that it looks like there's a big book and then some smaller books. And I thought that would look cute. But as you can see here, this brown is totally different than the other. The left book, the bigger book, is the original book. The right one, where I made this little organizer, I sealed with Mod Podge. And that's a thing that you please have to try out or that you have to have in mind. If you seal leather books, that have this leather spine, then they can go from this color to the other color that you have seen, or here you can compare it. It's the same book. The finished organizer is made out of exactly the same books. I'm pointing this out here so clearly because I don't want you to make the experience that I made. I was so sad. This book in my right hand has this cowboy brown, this really, really vintage, great and adorable brown. And then I thought I wanted to make it a little bit, more handy and sealed and secure. And I put some Mod Podge on top after I had finished the left thing. This finished organizer. I used this Mod Podge here. And I thought you can use it for so many things. I have so many positive experiences with Mod Podge. I painted it on top and the color changed, and it changed so extremely. So the left thing is something like, yeah, red brown. I don't know. It's so strange, and it's so, yeah, it was such a sad experience that I had to say that in this video so that you don't make this experience. So when you want to leave this brown color, the original color of your book, please don't use Mod Podge. If anyone knows some sealing method or some special kind of sealer that you can put on top of those leather bound books, then please leave a comment and let me know. You can also leave a link or some kind of an affiliate link. Perhaps you have an Amazon shop or whatever where I can find something when I want to do such a thing in the future as well. It's incredible. It's terrible. It's so terrible. But yeah, I will find a solution for this problem later. But in this stage of my process, I was really, really confused because, yeah, when I recorded this video, I knew about this problem. Do you know what I mean? And I was not sure what to do because those old books, of course, they are really sometimes really fragile, and I want to have this organizer forever. So, I mean, it's much work and I want to have it. Yeah, okay, so let's go on. When I have the order of my books here, then, of course, I need something for the bottom so that the ephemera can't fall out. Yeah, that's, I think, a logical thing. And we need something for the back side. So, I mean, that it is closed from the back side. And before I do that, as I said, I want to have, yeah, the right order of this thing. And I'm just realizing that I talked a little bit weird things before, because now here I'm deciding about the order. Sorry. So I hold it like this. I think a few seconds ago I did something else in the German video. I don't know. Sorry. So as you can see, the brown of this book is not on every book the same. The left one and the right one now are the most extremely, yeah, they have the most vintage look, I would say. They are the most distressed with the time. So I try to mix that a little bit up with the others that look a little bit newer. So yeah, don't know if that is a weird thing that only I can see or I would like to do, but I wanted to say it if you would like to do it as well. So I put those books in the order that I want to have them to my table and take the first one that I want to start with. And what I'm doing now, I do with all the books after each other in the order that they are standing there. So first of all, we want to put some fabric here to the inner spine. So later on, you can see that. I mean, the inner part of the spine will be visible in the end. When you look from the top into the organizer, you can see that. And of course, when your book looks nice from the inside, then you can skip this step. But here, as you can see here the fabric that I've glued there, and also the fabric on the sides. And I, yeah, decided that it looks better when the spine is covered up a little bit. And of course, it makes the book also a little bit more sturdy. And the whole organizer will be sturdier in the end when you cover this with some fabric. And when you use some glue, like, for example, Mod Podge. Mod Podge makes everything also a little bit more sturdier. Perhaps you know that when you put that on top of fabric, then it gets this stiff surface, and that's really great. Yeah, what am I doing here? Okay, so I can't recommend to use paper to cover this up, because when you glue that and you close the book like you have seen a second before, then it can happen that the paper is in the way in this little slot there. I like to do this like I would do it with a normal junk journal. I mean, when I would prepare an old book to use the cover as a junk journal cover, then I also would glue fabric to this area, and of course no paper, because you want to open and close the book later, and this little slot has to be flexible. In this case, the slot has to be flexible only one time, only when I close it. But when the paper tears, then I have no joy. So hopefully that makes sense. That's the reason why I'm using fabric here. And I try to, as I said, do it like I would do it with a normal junk journal. And like I would do it when I would make something like a hidden spine. So I will cut the fabric a little bit wider than the spine is to cover the spine itself, the both slots left and right, and I will let it overlap, round about a centimeter. It's not so important how much, but it's important that it is overlapping a little bit. You will see later why. So first of all, I have chosen this fabric here that comes from a scarf, and I thought it would be really helpful because it has these little squares on it so that I can cut it really regularly, and so that I can use it for that. And even if I put something else to the sides of this book, I thought it would look great, but you will see I have changed my mind. That will happen in a second. So to attach the glue, I mean this Mod Podge glue, I use this little sponge brush. Don't know how you call that. It's like a sponge, and it's really great for applying Mod Podge. It soaks a little bit. I mean, it soaks the glue. It will not drop to your table. It's much faster and easier than when you would use a brush. And as you can see, you can apply it really easily. And you can also go into those little areas where you normally can't reach with a brush. And that's, the reason why I like to use this sponge thing to apply my Mod Podge. So I will put the Mod Podge to those areas where the fabric later will be. If you put it a little bit too wide, that's no problem because it will dry totally clear. And when I did this, I thought a good thing about Mod Podge is that it dries not so fast. So I can put my fabric here, move it around a little bit until I have it there where I want it. And then I can wait until it's dry. And you can see here, even if it's not in the right position, I can lift it and place it again. That would normally be no problem. So you will see in a second why I had a problem. It's not because of the Mod Podge, but it's because of this fabric. You can see I'm struggling a little bit because I don't know. It was not in the middle. I was a little bit nervous because the camera was recording, and those projects, I mean, to show those projects that you have done only one time before you record the video. It's not so easy. And of course, it's something that I want to have for myself, that I want to have been made exactly, and that it is beautiful in the end. And so I struggled around a little bit with this fabric, and as you can see, it comes off again. I have never experienced that. I'm always gluing my fabric with, no, not always, but in the most cases, I'm gluing fabric with Mod Podge. Of course, you can also use this fabric glue, but Mod Podge is really great. You can also seal your fabric covers with Mod Podge, and that's so cool. And I really didn't know what happened here. So first of all, excuse me, please. I thought I would have this and I would try it on the other 4 books as well. But in the moment I have said it, I was sure that I have to find another solution. And that's something because this was so difficult, and I was not sure if it will be sturdy and really well glued in the end. So that's also a thing that I want to tell you from my experience. If you do that, as you can see here, I have changed the fabric. If you do that, please try it out on a similar surface, or try it out with one book and look if it is possible to glue it. So this scarf obviously was a little bit too stretchy to glue it. So it was not the Mod Podge itself, because you can see here the other fabric is glued really, really well. This is a pillowcase that comes from my grandmother. Obviously, this project, this Ocean Eyes Junk Journal project, has something to do with my family and with my grandmother. So yeah, now her pillowcase is here in those books. And I did that with all the 5 books. I mean, yeah, really simple. You can just glue the fabric there, let it dry, and then close the book and yeah, put it in the direction that it will be in the end. I mean, in this position that it will be in the end. And then you can see if the fabric is glued really well, or if you have to add some glue somewhere, or yeah, if you have to change something. But this is also only some kind of a decorative thing. If the inner side of your book looks great, of course you don't have to do this. Okay, so the next thing that we have to do is we have to make some, yeah, of those little pieces that we can put to the bottom of this whole thing. And I just have to think about what I am talking here, what I am doing there. I am searching for something, but okay, my hot glue gun, of course. Because I will attach the bottom pieces with some hot glue. And now you can probably think that cannot work. Because of this, that you think that, I have to say, I will do that, and it's only a temporarily thing. Hopefully that's the right word. I only use this hot glue to glue the pieces together, that I have one thing, that I can see if everything is straight, but the sturdiness itself is not made with the hot glue, but it's made with the fabric that I will glue later. You will see that in a few minutes. When you want to measure the bottom part of this little box, I mean, this book will become a box now. Hopefully that makes sense. Please look if your book has such a little thing here, there where my finger is. Can you see that this is a little bit strange? I had the problem that I didn't know where to measure, because when the bottom is too wide, look at this, I take the book a little bit apart. When the bottom is too wide, the rounded spine will be destroyed and it will be flat in the end. I will show you that in a second in detail. So to find the right width of the bottom for this little box, I take my grid on this craft mat and I put the book there so that it stands there in a parallel way. I mean, the right side of the book and the left side of the book shall be parallel, so that you can see approximately the position and the I don't know how to say that, how this thing is in the end. I mean, so that you can measure it. Here I take my ruler and I measure in two places. I mean, on the front and on the back of this little parallel line, so that I can see how much centimeters I have there. So I think I had 4 centimeters for this first thing. And of course, you can change that later. I mean, if you have cut too much, if the piece is too wide, of course, you can always cut a millimeter or yeah, how much you will need. I will show you in a second what I'm meaning. It's really difficult for me to explain that. But when you do it, you will experience that, I'm sure. You will see within seconds what I mean when you have these things on your desk. So I would like to encourage you to create such an organizer for yourself. It's so much fun. You need much patience, but it's so much fun. And here I'm realizing that the book cover that I have here, so that's an ordinary book cover as well, has the same length as I need for this piece that I want to cut. So of course I turn it this way around, and this way I have to make only one cut, and yeah, can cut this piece into several pieces to make it fit for the little boxes that we will create now. So I search where my 4 centimeter mark is. So now I will try it with this grid, even if this is sometimes not such exactly, but I think in this case it will work. So I've cut those 4 centimeters there. Of course, I say 4 centimeters. In my case, it was 4 centimeters. You have to measure that, please, on your own book. And then when you have measured it, you can put it inside of the book like so to the bottom. And then you can press on the left and the right side on the book on the very bottom so that you can see if it is regular and nice, if you would glue it. So you can control yourself if everything is okay just by putting this piece into this little thing and then see if everything is okay. And here you can also see if this piece is too wide, because when the spine is not rounded here, the piece on the bottom is too wide. It will bring the book too much apart from each other. I mean the front cover and the back cover, it will be too much apart from each other, and then the spine will be flat. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think if you see that in your own hands, you will realize what I mean. I will show you that from the bottom as well, so that you can imagine how that will look in the end. So I have some problems to hold that here. It's a little bit strange. Here on the back side, I line it up with the book cover so that it ends there where the book cover is ending. And here I leave this little gap. I mean, you could cut that in this round way like the book cover is, but seriously, what shall fall out of this little slot there? I mean, there will be a hole in the bottom of this whole box later, but even if something will fall out there, some of the ephemera, the smaller pieces, for example, it will only fall to your table and nowhere else. So that will be no problem. Of course, you can cut it in this round way, and then the spine will also be a little bit sturdier than it is here, but I think for me it's okay. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some hot glue. Please do that really carefully when you use hot glue. It's, yeah, you know, it's hot. And then I place that to my table and press the first part of the book there where it belongs. And as you can see, I'm rubbing this over my craft mat a little bit. I'm doing that because the hot glue, of course, is squeezing out a little bit on the bottom, and I don't want to have this thing be glued on my desk. So I'm moving it a little bit so that the glue doesn't stick to my craft mat. And then I let this dry. And I know it's only a really tiny surface to glue that, but for me, it's the most easiest way to do that. You could do that, of course, with some tape. There is this little, how is that called? This wet tape. It's Nassklebeband in German. I don't know the English word. It's some tape that's originally it's dry, and when you put some water on top, it gets sticky. Of course, you can use such a tape as well. I think the professional box crafters use that as well. But for me, in this case, hot glue was the easiest way because I know how I have to use hot glue. And that's also a thing that I want to say. Use those things that you are that you know how to use them. I mean, this is a really special project. It's some really special thing for myself as well, and for my personal craft room, and for my experience with my crafty process. And for those projects, I don't like to experiment. So I'm using hot glue because I know how it reacts, how I have to use it. And if you say, oh, hot glue, cutting knife, I don't know, I'm a beginner, I'm not so sure how to do that, then please find some things in your craft room that you are familiar with, that you like to use and that you know how to use. And if you use hot glue or any other glue, it doesn't matter. you only have to make sure that this is, yeah, in some way glued together. So hopefully you know what I mean. Yeah, and I use some clamps here to hold everything together and to press the glue a little bit. I mean, hot glue is really thick when you apply it, and with these clamps I can make sure that everything is really, yeah, flat on top of each other, that the glue is pressed a little bit. On the bottom, there where the spine is, excuse me please, I have to do it with my hands, of course, because I can't apply such a clamp there. Yeah, and while I was happy that this is so straight and nice, I realized that I have glued the book in the wrong direction. So here you can see a little panic attack, a crafter's panic attack, because, yeah, this is glued. Perhaps you have seen that while I have glued it, but I didn't realize it. I was so in my concentration about explaining this thing while I did this video in German, and yeah, I just didn't realize it. So of course you have to make sure that the books are in the right direction, because you want the nice part of the spine, this top of the spine, to be seen on the top of your organizer later. The good thing about hot glue and this really yeah, I would say textured, but how is that said? It's a little bit glossy surface of the book. It's yeah, you can glue it with hot glue, but you can also take it apart really easily, as you can see. So of course we want to have this part here, this nice part of the spine of every book on the top of the organizer. On the bottom there's the cut, and on the top there's the original book spine thing. The corner, not the corner, but the edge. Yeah, then my hot glue gun went out of glue. That was the next thing. I was really crazy about that at that time, because it took me some nerves to do that. Explaining and doing such, I would say, a little bit difficult things at the same time is really, really, really difficult. But yeah, as you can see, I've just glued it a second time, attached here those clamps to make sure that it's really good together, and that the hot glue will be pressed in between of those books, that it's really nice attached, and there's no gap in between of the books. You have to press that a little bit until the hot glue begins to dry. So when you can feel it's still a little bit hot, press, and yeah, then when it gets cooler, you can leave it like it is, and yeah, let it dry completely. So the next thing, of course, you have to measure again. So for the next bottom part here, I put this whole thing to my table like so, and I try to find a measurement on my craft mat as well. So I line this up with these parallel lines on the craft mat, so that I have the chance to measure it exactly. Yeah, then I take my ruler again, measure that to have the exact size of the next piece that I have to cut. If you perhaps have some books that have all exactly the same size, then of course you can cut those bottom pieces all at once. But in this case, the books had different amounts of pages, so every of those pieces I had to measure it separately. So I take this book cover piece again, make my little marks, and cut that to the right size. And yeah, here you can see the cut is not so exactly, it's straight, but I damaged the this little piece a little bit, but that's no problem, because we will cover that up later with some fabric. So also the pattern on these pieces will be not visible in the end. So I check if my spine is still round, so that the piece is not too wide. As I said before, everything here looks great. So that I can take off the clamps from before and glue this piece. I do it the same way. use my hot glue gun, apply, sorry, a little bit of glue first to one of the edges, and then I press it there where it belongs. Make sure that it is lined up with the end of the book cover. Rub it over my craft mat a little bit so that it doesn't stick there. And when you want to remove some hot glue that's squeezing out of those little glued areas, please make sure that you don't burn your fingers. And that's what I wanted to say a few minutes ago. When you use hot glue every day, you know how you have to handle it, and you know how much heat your fingers can can stand. And if you don't have used hot glue before and you want to try it here the first time with this project, please make sure that you don't burn your fingers. And also try to remove everything from this glue that's coming out from these little areas. Of course, when you press it together, then some of the glue will come out. The surface to glue is really thin, so of course that's a normal thing, but you have to make sure that no, in German we would say that are glue noses. I mean, there are these little things of the glue that you have to remove before you go on later. But I think, that's a clear thing. When we attach the fabric later for the inside, we don't want to have any irregular areas. So that's the reason why we have to remove this overlapping glue. So I think that looks good. And what am I doing next? I don't know. I have some glue here, so I don't know where it comes from, but yeah, I remove it so that I have a clear surface that I can use for the next book. Then I put the next book here. As you can see, that's much smaller, much thinner, but that's also a great thing, because then later on this whole thing looks a little bit more interesting, I think. When all those little boxes have the same size, it looks not so interesting. It looks not so junky, you know what I mean. So I'm attaching the third thing here, and as I said, I have arranged them there out of the video frame. You can't see that, but I use one after the next. No. I think that was really weird English. Sorry. You know what I mean. I use them in the order that I have arranged them before they are on my table. I take one after each other and do the same steps like I've showed you, and glue all those bottom pieces into the 5 books. Yeah. What am I talking here so long in German? I don't know. Sometimes it's much easier to say something in English because it doesn't take so long, but I'm really confused. I don't know what I'm talking there in the original video. But, okay, I think I know. You can also use the grid of your craft mat in this stage to check what you have done before. I mean, you have to eyeball this. When you put that together and it shall look like this in the end, the most of the things you have to eyeball, and you have to balance this out a little bit. So the grid of such a craft mat can also be a good help to make this spine line and the back line parallel to each other. And after this whole thing is done, you can see that this is not very sturdy. Of course, we need a backside, and we need something here for the bottom as well to make the whole thing much more sturdy. And perhaps you think, why the heck has she put those single pieces into this bottom part? You could also use a book cover like this, for example, of course in the right size. This is only for demonstration. And you could also glue all of those small books to one piece. But then you will have here on the bottom some kind of a little gap that makes a really big shadow. So I realized that I don't like that when it is there under my shelf. It looks really strange, and it looks not like books are standing next to each other anymore. It looks like they are flying in the air a little bit. That was the reason why I put this bottom part like I have shown you, and not glued it to a whole piece of a book cover. Of course, you can do it when you don't mind about this little gap on the bottom, but I found it much nicer like this. Now I take the same fabric from this pillowcase from my grandmother, and I will attach this fabric to the inside of this little areas from this organizing thing. So I will start on the very outside, and I will also glue that with Mod Podge, and I use this little sponge tool there as well. Of course, you could also leave this outside of the book like it is, so that it still looks like the original book from the very left and the very right part of this organizer tool. But I want to distress this whole thing later with some Distress Oxide ink. And because of the surface of this book cover, I decided that I want to cover this with fabric, because I can then easier distress it. It's really, some kind of glossy and textured, and I think on the fabric the Distress Oxide gets more interesting, more vintage, and it's easier to apply, and it will stay there. So I wanted to go the really safe way and glue the fabric there to the outside as well. And the next thing is, when you start here at the outside, then you can go to the inside like I do in the next step, and this part where I put the glue now, this top edge, will be covered with the fabric as well. If you would start in the inside of this first box, this first edge of the book will have no fabric, or you have to attach it to this little tiny surface there, this really thin edge, and that's not so easy. That's another reason why I have made it like this and started from the outside, and put the fabric around this little edge there. Hopefully that makes sense. You could also attach this Mod Podge glue with a normal brush, but I would suggest to use this sponge, especially in the inside of these boxes. As you can see, it's really easy and really fast. Of course, Mod Podge is, some kind of slow drying glue, but you have to manage that you get the fabric inside to all of those three sides, to the right side, the bottom, and the left side, before the glue is drying. So please have that in mind when you choose the glue that you want to use to glue the fabric. I'm covering everything from this first section of this organizer with glue first, and then putting the fabric inside. I found out that this is the most easiest way. And as you can see, I'm also using a really long stripe of this fabric. So this piece is really long, so that I don't have this cuts in between. I mean, you will see that later. This was a little bit too short. Of course, the pillowcase has, some kind of a length, and I had to use that. I only had the length of the pillowcase that I could cut this fabric from. But if you would use a single piece of a separate piece for every box that you have here, I think it would be really, really difficult and not so nice. So here you have a whole piece that you can wrap around there, and you will not see those areas where one fabric is ending and the next is beginning. Hopefully that makes sense. I can't explain that in English, but hopefully you got it. So this looks also much more regular. I use a bone folder to get the fabric to this little corners there. And that's, to be honest, a little bit difficult while the Mod Podge is still wet. if you wait a little bit, but that's a question of experience with Mod Podge. When it begins to dry and you take then your bone folder and try to get the fabric in the right position, it's much easier than when the Mod Podge is really still wet. Still really wet. I think that's the better English, but I don't know. I think you can see what I'm doing here. And I'm also, yeah, I am giving this some kind of little massage to make sure that this is attached really well and that everything is in the right place. Because when I go on in a second with the other little boxes and the first one is not nice, then I can't repair that without beginning from new. So, yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Before I go on, I have dried the first section with my, heat gun so that this is really dry and that it stays in place, because now I'm attaching the next amount of glue for the next section, and I have to wrap the fabric around a little bit. And of course I will I'm always struggling with push and pull. I think it's pull. I'm pulling the fabric a little bit to the bottom of the next section. Hopefully that's the right word. And when I do that, I don't want to lift up the fabric from the first section. So for me, it was the easiest way to do one section by the next, and then in between drying everything with my heat gun. So when I have this fabric attached, I will dry it with my heat gun again so that I can go on with the next section. And for me, the most important thing, I mean, this optical thing, I don't know, is that the right word? So that it looks nice from the top, and in those areas that you can see later. I make sure that the fabric on this little bridge there on the top is attached really well and that it looks nice. Of course, the rest is important as well, but everything that you can see later, for my opinion, has to be made really carefully and really exactly. Of course, this is not, perhaps I should say that, this is not a this kind of professional tutorial that you can see from those paper crafters that make those really beautiful boxes. I think you know those really exact measured boxes where you can put some gifts in, or these surprise boxes. You open them and then there come some sweets or some photos or whatever out of it. Of course, that has to be measured much more exactly than I can do it here. But I want to have something that can be recognized as handmade. I don't want to be asked, from where have you bought this? That's not meant bad against those, I would say, scrapbooking and box making people. I have the biggest respect to those people who can measure such things such exactly that you have something in the end that you think it's bought somewhere, a machine has made it. But on my channel, you know that when you know my channel, you can find those things that everyone can make. That's also not meant bad, but I think for such a professional box, you have to learn really, special skills. You have to learn some tricks that you can do it like those experts do that. And I wanted to have something, and I wanted to have a tutorial here on my channel that everyone can make. And even if you hate measuring, or even if you don't have such special tools that those experts perhaps use, you can do this. I wanted to have something that really everyone can do, and that you can also create with the materials that you have at home. I'm sure everyone has those materials at home. We all have so many old books that are in our shelf and we probably don't use them. And for such a project, you can use up those books and also the covers and this materials from the books. Hopefully, yeah, that comes in the right way to you like I mean it. So as you can see, this is still not so sturdy. A second ago, you could see when I press the sides of this thing, it moves a little bit. And that's because we still have no backside for this. So I took those pieces here. They are from a book cover as well. And as you can see, there's this rounded side, and here I have cut it. And I think it's the most easiest way and the best way when you put the cut edge to the bottom of this little section, and the round thing that's from the original book, where the paper from the book cover is wrapped around, that you can put to the top. And I do it the same way like I did it with the bottom pieces. I just attach some hot glue on the 3 sides, so on the bottom and on the left and the right side. Then I press this a little bit, so that it is a little bit wider than before. You can press it apart a little bit, and then I put this backside thing inside of it. And this time I don't line it up with the edge of the book, but I put it a little bit to the inside. As you can see here, it's not one line with the bottom. This piece is a little bit, I would say, it's 3 or 4 millimeters, I think, to the inside, so that it looks like a book from the backside. I mean, when you have a book, then the pages also are not going to the very edge of the book. They are a little bit to the inside. And I wanted this look for this organizer as well. And of course, you could also take a whole piece of this book cover material and glue it to the complete backside. I mean, from the very left to the very right of this thing, so that you only need 1 big piece and not 5 smaller pieces. I think that's a personal preference thing. I think when I would do this a 3rd time, I would probably do that and don't have this look of the book from the backside, but the most easiest way to glue that. Perhaps I would take a bigger piece and just glue it to the backside, but in this case, I wanted to have the same look like my prototype is. The first thing that I made it the same way like here, and when I have both on my desk, of course, I want to have them nearly the same way. Now I'm taking some scissors and I'm going over the this cutted edge with my scissors. So that way I made the cut in the book in the very beginning. Of course, there's the cut and it looks like a cut. And I wanted to have this distressed look on the bottom as well. When you use your scissors, it also makes this part a little bit rounded and some kind of naturally distressed. It's optional, of course, and it depends, of course, to the kind of book that you have used. With this leather-bound books, it's really easy to do that, and it has this really distressed look. When you have a book that's bound with linen or paper, for example, then probably that will not work so well. You can try it out carefully and then you will see how it will look. Please do that, like you need it for your project. So, and here you can see this problem with the color of the book. On the left side, you can see the first organizer that I've made, that I've shown you in the very beginning of this video. And here you can see the difference between the first one and the second one that we've made a second ago. And then I was sitting there and I was touching those books, and the books on the right side, they felt so smooth and so vintage, so old, so, yeah, like those treasure books, you know what I mean. And on the left side, because of this Mod Podge ceiling, the books felt like nearly new, and I was so angry, and I didn't know what to do. And here you can see there's also a little damage, and I don't know how that could happen. I have no idea. I haven't seen that before. I yeah just realized it when I wanted to finish the video and when I wanted to finish this tutorial. So yeah, I was not really happy about that and thought about a solution how to repair that. And at the same time, I was not sure if I want to put it like this below my shelf, as I showed you before, next to those bigger books that I've used for my shelf stands. So I decided to make this step by step. First of all, I tried to repair this little damage. And while I had this sponge in my hand, I thought, okay, when I perhaps leave two of those books in its original color and seal the rest, perhaps that could look interesting, and perhaps that could look like they are in a shelf in a library, for example. Then you also have this irregular look of the same series of some books. Hopefully that makes sense. So first, let's do it step by step. After this decision, I first repaired this little damage there. So I put some Mod Podge in this little gaps and also some on top so that it is really secure and really, yeah, not visible or not so much visible in the end. And then I decided that I want to leave this book as it is and seal this one and the next one. So as you can see here, I'm drying it, and it's like magic. It's like magic. It looks new. It's unbelievable for me. So if anyone has an idea why this happens, please let me know. But yeah, I have no words. As you can see, the Mod Podge in this little slot, it's still wet, and I will let this air dry. Please don't use your heat gun for those projects when this is too much somewhere of this Mod Podge, because when you heat it up too long, then you can get some bubbles, and that will look really, really ugly in the end. So here I am discussing with myself if I shall seal the last book, the very right book of this second organizer as well, or if I shall leave it like it is. Because when I would seal it, I would have something like a finishing book on the right side in the same color like the others on the left side. But then I would only have two of the original colored books, and three would be a better amount. Yeah, it's a little problem, but perhaps it's only a problem for myself. Then I had another strange experience because I used some distress oxide on the sealed books. I did that with the first organizer as well after I realized this problem with the Mod Podge. And when I made this prototype, I thought with the distress oxide I could bring back some of this brownish vintage color. And as you can see on the left thing, this vintage photo distress oxide was really bluish, grayish, some kind of foggy. It's really strange. And when I went over it the second time, I realized that it is brown. I don't know. I don't know. Please don't ask me why this is so strange, but in the end, it looked like this, and I was really happy. It looks like, yeah, the books are aged and they are old, they are vintage. And so I went over this a little bit more so that I could get rid of this red brown. I really was, yeah, really confused about this red. Probably the camera also can't catch the real color of this. In the camera, it looks still really brown. I have some problems with my lighting at my desk at the moment when I'm filming, but I think in reality, this is, yeah, so strange, so strange. So what I want to say is, here I'm in the stage of, yeah, the nearly finished product. And my project is nearly ready to go. And when such things happen at the very end of such a thing, it can be really frustrating. So I would like to encourage you, if you use such things like Mod Podge, Distress Oxide, or Distress Ink, or some other mediums, try that out not on your project, but on a similar surface so that you can see what will happen. So, I mean, yeah, so that such things that happen to me don't happen to you. Okay, so for the backside and the bottom, I decided to use some book pages to cover that. Of course, I don't want to see those original surfaces of what I have glued together there. I don't want it to see those book cover surfaces. If you have a book cover for the backside that looks nice or that has a great pattern on it, of course, you can also leave it like it is so that yeah, you can get this imagination that there are 5 books next to each other. But I didn't like this pattern of the cover that I've used so much, even if it's brown and, yeah, looked like some kind of book pages, but I didn't like it. So I covered it up with those book pages, but of course you can leave it like it is. Or what you also could do is, you could take some how is that called? Some clay, and make pieces where you make some slots that look like this book pages. You know what I mean? And then you can glue that to the backside so that it looks like there are standing some real books. But this amount of work was too much for my needs. I mean, this is an organizer. This is meant to be used on my desk. And when I work on my project, then I have this organizer on my desk and I will use it. And while I'm working on my junk journal, of course, I'm not looking at this organizer every few seconds. Do you know what I mean? So, especially on the back side, it's not so important for me how this looks. But of course, you can do it like you want to do it. Use book pages, or you can also use some napkins to glue this and make some decoupaging with napkins. I guess you could also decoupage on top of the fabric. So if you want to have some great patterns inside of this organizer, you could perhaps use napkins on top of the fabric. I'm just thinking about that, and I think perhaps I will try that. Perhaps on the back side, or I don't know, but that could look great as well. Please use what you have. If you have napkins, then use the napkins. If you have book pages, use the book pages. Yeah, so then it looked like this. So everything on the back side, no, so on the back of the inside, you know what I mean, was covered up. And then I wanted to cover the whole back side as well, because I said, yeah, this is, it's a little bit strange. It shows this face from the original book cover, but I was not so sure. I wanted to have it the same like the other one, and on the other one I used some book pages for the backside as well, so I did it here the same. I also just applied some Mod Podge, and then I used the full book page to glue that on top. And I used a trick that you perhaps know when you want to attach wallpaper to your wall. Then you, for the most wallpapers, it's recommended to apply the glue and then wait about 5 or 10 minutes so that the glue has the chance to soak into the wallpaper. And I did the same with the Mod Podge and the book pages here as well. I covered everything with the Mod Podge, and then I applied the book page, waited a little bit, and then I could bring it into all those little gaps and slots very easily. And yeah, it was really easy, like you would attach wallpaper to an irregular wall. And to make this whole thing, yeah, on the one hand, a little bit more sturdy, a little bit more secure, sealed, and that stuff. I put some Mod Podge in all of those sections. So I tried to get the Mod Podge on, yeah, in every area of this whole surface of the inside of this little boxes, and especially on those little divider things on the very top. If you want to distress your organizer later, I will do that in a second, then you have to make sure, if you want to have it regular, you have to make sure that your sealer, in this case the Mod Podge, is everywhere on the surface. If you have Mod Podge in some areas and no Mod Podge in some other areas, the distress ink or the distress oxide ink, of course, will react in a really different way. So I wanted to make sure that the surface is all the same before I begin to distress that. And yeah, then I took a look at this thing here, and I was really happy that I made it like I made it, because I think when I wouldn't have recorded this video, I would have never come to this idea to make it such irregular and only seal some of the books and not all. And I think that's also a point. There goes a really big thank you to you as my audience, because you are bringing me to some ideas so often, and that's so cool. Sometimes you are commenting below my videos and I get so many ideas from you. That's so cool, and I want to say a very big thank you for that. So yeah, that was the same thing here. I was talking to my German audience, and yeah, in reality I was talking to myself. I know, when you record a video, you are talking to yourself. Now I'm talking to myself as well. It's a little bit strange, but of course you are here with me. And when I'm talking to myself, I know someday you will hear me. And that's the reason why I'm not talking to myself, but I'm talking to you. And when then those ideas come to my head, then it's also because of you and because you are existing in my world as well. And that's really cool. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, so as you could see, I have distressed this thing so that it looks like the other one. And from the top, I think it looks really nice when it's distressed, because it fits better to the brown of the book spines. And now this whole thing looks like this. What do you think about that? I think this is so cute, and I will put that there to my shelf, below my shelf, and I will definitely post a photo somewhere on my Instagram or somewhere else so that you can see it, how it will look when it is below my shelf. But even if you would put it, excuse me, please, only to your table and use it, and it's no decorative thing, even on your table, it can look great. So hopefully that makes sense what I want to say here. I made it that it fits my shelf, but if you want to use it only for organization, you have, I think, a really cute and beautiful thing on your desk, and not only a box or, yeah, whatever. And I think this came out really great. So I think I can store lots of ephemera here, and I'm so happy that I did that. And I'm so happy that I came to the idea of this organizing thing on my desk as well. So you will see some more organizing ideas in the future. I will include that into my Ocean Eyes Junk Journal series. This is one part of this series. There will follow some tutorials on the journaling process itself, but there will also be some ideas how to organize your desk during your journaling process. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you will enjoy my further videos. So yeah, Have a very creative time. See you the next time. Bye bye.